That's me. Hey, good to see you here. Nobody raised their hands when he was asking me, how will 5G change your business like you know? Because technically I've been attending zillion of conferences and congresses of telecommunication operators, and actually no one knows so far. There's been huge hype regarding the 5G around the planet for about last 2 years, or even 3 years now. And everybody's trying to figure out what's going to actually happen. So what I'm going to do today in this workshop, I will walk through a little bit on a little bit of our experience in some particular case studies regarding the smart cities, drones, connected cars, and as well as big data, and also a little bit of a theory. But at the very beginning, I should probably introduce myself. So what gives me reason to actually talk about all this stuff? So I do represent a rather crazy mobile operator. We have been trying to do things a little bit financially different than the rest of the Europe and USA. So according to Nokia, I do represent here the most loaded mobile operator from the Nokia networks on the planet so far. So no one else pushes so much data through the base stations as we do. So we are kind of hard pushing guys, and still we've been rather lucky and skillful to actually keep on the rather high level of network quality. So how we did this, a little bit, few slides about who we are and why we do this. A few years ago, we realized that most of the telecommunication operators are really arrogant, and they really don't care about their customers. They are really greedy, and they expect the customers to obey them. So we saw this is not too nice, so we developed completely different financial models, because most of the financial models for telecommunication operators around the planet, they include the assumption that megabytes have cost. So we were looking for this cost for many years. We didn't find any. There is no cost for the megabyte. And there is lots of capital investments, though, but there is not so much incremental cost for deploying a mobile network. And therefore, we have been going for, it looks really simple, going for flat rates, both in voice and mobile broadband, mobile data, and launching a TV on a mobile network. But it, of course, is rather hard on the technical side, which, of course, as a result, has brought the citizens of Latvia as the second most mobile data consuming humans on the planet, second to Finland. The Finns are even crazier than we are in that particular sense. So on average, the citizen of Latvia consume a little bit less than 9 gigabytes per month, the average person who is using a smartphone. So, and lastly, last year we launched our first 10 gigabit wireless link, and therefore our intention and claim is that future is, so to speak, a mobile only. That's kind of a joke, of course, but that a little bit gives us this spirit of how do we talk about the 5G. Because, of course, once upon a time, our business as the operators was really simple. We were technically selling SIM cards. And what will be happening within the 5G is we have to be more involved in the actual business, be it shopping, be it smart home, manufacturing, or anything else. So probably the classical approach, when you go to some conference and you discuss things about the 5G, normally you talk about Internet of Everything and big data. Probably the third issue we have to actually pay really much attention to is networking, because networking is the key values these days. Because once upon a time we really paid attention not to talk too much and be really confidential and not to share anything we know. These days there is no value in the ideas. The ideas are worthless. There is a zillion of ideas each morning. When I open my Twitter, I read about new ideas. There's a white noise of ideas, and the only valuable ideas are the ones you can actually execute. And to execute new things in this new era, you have to have friends. If you have no friends and you haven't shared your ideas, you have no friends, and therefore networking and events like these are really, really important to actually move forward in the technological world. So just having big data and nice hardware is not good enough to go on. You know, you have probably heard this all over the place. There is this saying about the industrialization 4.0, and like, you know, the 4.1 was for the industrialization 0.1 was usage of water and steam power, then the electricity, then the IT systems was industrialization 3.0, and now we of course are moving on to the IoT and yeah. So the 5G. The 5G, there's a huge hype. You can go, wherever you go, there's a 5G, and many vendors and operators have been really honest with us and also with the media. It's not so clear. Not so clear what will be the actual change and actual difference and actual new business models which will be driven by the 5G. So what I will try to do, I'll try to just show some examples. And probably this will be the most boring slide, but that's going to be a theory. But it seems really important to me because most typical distraction about the 5G is the assumption that this will be just a bigger speed. There's a specific chart of how the 5G will actually differentiate from 4G, or so to speak, DLT. So on scale of speed, of course, there will be higher speeds. Like right now, we can reach about 1 gigabit per second within the 4G network. And of course, this will go up about tenfold within the 5G network. But that's probably not the most important thing, because these days, there is not so much content. There's not so much content you could actually use already today. So 4G is really good for content, and as far as we don't have some really, really good virtual content, which we don't have yet, we really don't need higher speeds for humans. What we do need are many, many, many more other things. Like one thing is also comes a little bit from the old times, is that probably you don't know this, but for the mobile operator, the huge challenge is delivering a decent quality on the bordering areas of cells. So this will be actually significantly improved with the 5G. It sounds really boring and simple, but this is really, really crucial for you as the user. The other thing is also probably might sound really boring. It sounds very data throughput, but that actually means deep indoor and deep outdoor reach, which means that 5G technologies modulation will be, let's say simply better, so to speak. So this will actually reach with that same frequency band will actually reach deeper and deeper into the forest and deeper into the, so to speak, basement. Speed and handover things like 500 kilometers per hour, and the 5G will be still operational. Why this is important? Because if we assume two cars moving towards each other or away from each other on the highway, so their combined speed is really high. So therefore, 5G is looking for serving really high speeds, where the 4G stops around roughly 150 to 200 kilometers per hour. The 5G will actually reach 500 kilometers per hour. The cost is really important too, because everything we talk about, you know, Internet of Things and sensors and sensors and sensors, it all involves that there will be huge amount of sensing equipment. And actually the cost of deploying low-powered sensors all over the place will go significantly down. Density. This is also a little bit sounds boring, but this is important for the telco operator, because now we are going to measure the amount of sensors per square kilometer. So this will go up to about 10,000. So we will, with the, so to speak, we will tenfold increase the amount of devices we can actually maintain in one single particular cell. And probably the last, but probably the most important is latency. Latency, which normally in the 4G network is about 20 milliseconds, will go possibly down to almost 1 to 2 milliseconds, which is something we are looking forward if we are fantasizing about managing cars on the streets and many different, or even virtual reality, like, because these days it's not flying too much because of the latency and many. So latency is probably the least understood part of the 5G, but probably, to my mind, one of the most crucial things. So let's walk through some examples of some directions. So on what will be the impact of the 5G, and it's not going to be just the speed. So classically, the first thing everybody talks about is the sensors and Internet of Things, and this is of course nothing that has that will start, because this has happened many years ago. So this is a chart showing the growth. This is in thousands, of course. This growth of number of sensors in Europe. So the turning point roughly was 2012. So this is technically a history of 4G, not so much about the 5G. And the average cost during this since 2003 has went down 3 times, and it will go down even further. And Internet of Things these days represent a zillion of topics, of course, as you all know. And starting from the smart clothing and ending with the maintenance optimization and 3D printing. But probably one of the biggest common grounds for all these sensing development is that we could call it the concept of smart cities, that all the objects in cities and enterprises, all the small things will technically be digitalized and digitally understandable. So therefore, there's a short video from our impressions regarding the smart cities from the biggest event we have in the telco world, which is called Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. And so 1 minute of your time, just some nice movie. Cool. Anyway, so one of the within this smart cities, probably one of the most fantasized topic is autonomous driving, and people have been fantasizing about autonomous driving since the 1960s. You have these old nice pictures about the family sitting in the car, playing the domino, and not, and this has been great fantasy, and we are actually in some aspects, we are really close to this. In some aspects, self-driving cars are really, really far away, because to actually achieve the level 5 automation, you have to be really, really improved. I mean, the one thing that shocked me personally is that according to the rules now being discussed in the United Nations, is that the autonomous car will have to understand also the guy on the street with the stick, which is regulating the traffic. So it sounds really simple probably, but it's a really, really beautiful challenge for the self-driving car. Which will happen really soon is, of course, the self-driving in a really controlled situation, probably highways, closed areas like trams and metros. They actually are self-driving in many cities already. I recently bought a new Volvo, and I accidentally found out that it's actually almost level 3 automation, because it actually drives on the highway by itself. And I was somewhat shocked, to be honest, and I didn't realize it's so close. But the jump from here to actually this place is really far away. right now, the biggest concerns of the car companies is actually the human factor, because you cannot actually sell cars with level 3 automation because people are lazy. Because this assumes that 99% of the time the car drives by itself. This 1%, that's tricky. Because then you go, lazy, you go this, you go to the next seat, and when you have to just take over, you are all the tests show that takes much more time than actually that would be deemed safe. So most likely we will never be able to legally buy level 3 automation cars. So the jump to the level 4 and 5 is really tricky. So therefore there is another, so to speak, a buzzword we should probably learn. So one thing is autonomous vehicles, the other one is connected vehicle. And connected vehicle is something much more viable and closer and much more functional, and this will probably reach us much sooner. So autonomous vehicle concept is that this is the car or vehicle which technically operates in isolation and by itself. And connected car is the car which is communicating with other cars and roadside units, and is actually improving its driving efficiency based on all the information it actually receives from the outer environment. And probably it doesn't matter too much who is actually driving the car. Probably the most important thing today is to stop that strange thing that our cities, the streets, are completely analog. So there are tens of thousands of cars on the streets in the city right now, and no one knows when, where, why, how much, where are they actually going, and what are they. This is really weird. And therefore, what we have been doing, we have been researching many aspects of the connected cars as we speak, because we believe that connected cars will actually hit our streets really soon. And probably one of the interesting projects we are developing with our Finnish friends is a concept of corridor as a service, because this is one of the possible examples of applications of connected cars, which means there's an example. It's called a salmon road. There are the guys in Norway who are actually catching salmon and selling it fresh down here in Tokyo. So they have actually reached that place in 36 hours. So there's a special track, but they go there by tracks to the Helsinki airport, where the Finnair, who still has the rights to fly over Siberia and go down to Tokyo. And they had to do this in 36 hours. So the concept is that all this track, it has to be maximally optimized for the tracks to have maximum green lights, to be faster, and to spend less fuel. Because each time when the big truck stops and it starts again, it actually wastes lots of fuel, so it's not cost efficient. So the business model here is going to be to actually sell to the truck companies this corridor, so to speak, with the green lights. It sounds maybe simple, but there will be actual business gains in terms of time and in terms of fuel. And expanding this concept to all the other directions, if the truck company can improve the mileage and the fuel consumption per 8 hours, which is legal for the truck driver to actually steer the wheel. So this is all clear business gains, and probably this is one of the closest new business models we can expect to actually see with the connected cars. So the other topic classically associated with the upcoming 5G is drones. And this is a particular picture of Latvian guys. They made the first human jump from the drone. That's the Latvian-made drone. It can actually lift up to 200 kilos, and it's rather big. So they use it for firefighting and cleaning wind turbines. It looks just beautiful, doesn't it? But there's lots of challenges with the drones, and technology is probably the least of it. So there are drones. It's nothing new. But first of all, there's a challenge of legislation. I will elaborate a little bit on. There's the challenge with the GPS precision. Why all the tests of drone delivery, they are not particularly successful on the large scale because you with the existing GPS positioning precision, you cannot actually guarantee where this drone will end up. Will it end in your backyard, or it's going to be your neighbor's backyard? And that might turn out a little bit, so to speak, kinky. The batteries is the other huge challenge. It's really old challenge, but the battery power and weight ratio is still not much better than reaching about some 40 minutes. So the drone most likely will not fly further than 40 minutes. And even if it flies back and forth, that will be technically even less. So the battery challenge is still in place. And finally, the airspace control is what will actually happen when the huge amounts of drones will actually hit the skies. So there's been great discussion going on about the legislation, how to manage all these moving mobile unmanned units. And there's an up here, about more than 100 meters up, there's a very old industry. There's really smart and really rich people in the air industry, where they are also really concerned about the safety aspects. So, but the general concern is that somewhere here between the 60 meters and 150 meters is the area which will be dominated by the drones. And the other big challenge these days is the discussion about can you actually fly a drone beyond visual line of sight. These probably important 5 letters, BVLOS. So can you actually flight your drone when you don't see it? These days, it's technically forbidden in almost any country on the planet, with some exceptions for tests. And particularly if you want to do this, you can go probably to Switzerland these days. But this will be solved soon, I hope. But right now, you can legally and normally flight your drone when you actually see this. And this is, of course, not so cool. So therefore, there's the fantasy about creation of a U-space, which is a controlled space above the city, which you can actually control for the management of the drone traffic. And you can define the no-fly zones and do it dynamically. Beyond. U-space. So, yeah, why do we talk about this? Is that we see that the 5G will actually play a role here, because this is probably the best technology to actually implement the navigation of drones above the city, because each of the base stations is actually playing a role of, so to speak, a radio beacon, and you can actually control it. Therefore, it's not exactly very practical, but we are having a practical experiment to actually using 4G or almost 5G technology in supporting the launch of the rockets. It looks like this. There's a team of scientists in Latvia who are trying to achieve actually this space using the helium balloons. So what they are doing, they're lifting a platform of rocket up to this 30 kilometers in the sky, and actually commencing the launch sequence from 30 kilometers in the sky. So what we are doing, we are creating an upwards-oriented data tunnel for actually managing, uploading and downloading all the data from the rocket, both the launch sequence and the video feed. So. Yeah, so the ultimate fantasy is, can we actually reach 30 kilometers in space with actual conventional mobile technology? So far, we haven't been successful. We have been reaching approximately 20 kilos. So the question in the place is, can we actually go 10 kilometers higher with our existing radio technology? Yeah, you know. So and finally, about the sensors and artificial intelligence is, of course, the other classical expectations of the 5G. And I had one strange example. I would never imagine why would factories need the 5G wireless technology, because all the, you know, I imagine all these robots being fixed, but it turned out that the modern production technologies imply that they are able to change the location of the robots really fast. So if the production model is changing, they are actually redistributing all the robots within the factory. So the 5G is more conventional for this than the simple wiring. But still, as I were mentioning before, one of the most important things is that all the units, all the sensors in the lamps and coffee machines, cars and dresses will be digitalized, and this will of course create enormous amount of data. Of course, the self-learning, computer vision is becoming ubiquitous already as we speak, and quite often. Our understanding is that computer vision is actually sometimes much cheaper than actually sensors are. So many projects are shifting away from sensors towards actually using computer vision as the key tool for sensing, and of course, big data. And probably what we have to realize that the amount of data which is being created already today is huge, and what we see with our customers is that most of our customers, they already have the data. They are just not capable of making any sense of it, because it's not structured and they are not able to process it. So we made one of trials on our own. We devised GDPR ready population activity mapping for our corporate customers who are caring for improving their infrastructure, like companies who are building roads, banks who are deploying like ATM machines for the retail companies, and of course for the public security. And there's an example how does our capital heat map looks like. That is based on the real average daily map of people, economical and social activity over our capital during the daytime. And you can, of course, go down into much more detail, and you can build it by smaller blocks. And you can do this, of course, for all the country. And you can, for instance, you can identify which road and if you have to repair 2 roads coming to your city, you can actually really practically identify which road is more important to actually improve. Yeah. So finally and conclusively, that was a little bit of a picture. How does it look from the mobile operator's point of view, and how we feel about the 5G. There's lots of companies who are claiming that they have launched the 5G already, but the practical part of this is that the 5G is not being yet certified. It's not being, the standardization has not happened, and on the telco side, we believe that the 5G will be finally standardized in roughly next year. So, but this will be coming on with the narrowband, with the sensors, with many other things slowly and beautifully. So, and once again, so probably my key conclusion here is that you need to cooperate, because no operator or no vendor will actually understand what to do with all this gear. So you have to talk and love each other somehow and do something beautiful. Yeah, so that's it. So any questions or comments or objections maybe, or whatever? Anybody? Yeah.
It was very good, thank you. I forgot to take off. Earphones. I heard about the parking spots, the automatic parking spots, and I can imagine that pretty much every one of you are driving cars, and in how many years actually we will get that?
This is one of the examples where we were too slow. At the January of last year, that was a pretty nice and new idea. We thought we might launch it. We were thinking too slow. It took us about 6 months while we were thinking about it, and by the end of the 6 months, there are already many small players in our city who are actually doing this. So we actually skipped, we as an operator, we skipped this parking business at all because we were just too slow. And it is actually existing all over the city as we speak. So this is that's an old thing.
I can imagine, like you get up at home and you remember that after 10 minutes you have theater, and you just know that you won't have to worry about the parking spot. It's amazing.
Well, you will have to worry because I was not speaking about the number of places. I was just your awareness of where is the free or not free space. Yeah.
So you just put like in a GPS where you want to go, and it shows that there's the free spot.
Technically and theoretically, yes. And practically, almost, yes.
And about the drones.
Yeah.
I didn't actually. I heard that in countryside you can water the plants and whatsoever, but about the firefighting, it would be an amazing leap, right?
That's an actually existing project. That's not some future business. This Latvian company, they are actually right now operating in the USA, and because the efficiency of wind turbines can actually fall by almost 20% if they are dirty. So the dirt which accumulates on the wings, it actually drives down the efficiency of wind turbine. And it's had quite a big problem how you can actually wash the blade of a wind turbine if it's 100 meters in the sky. That's quite an expensive problem. So what they do, they bring this huge drone, they switch there's a huge cable of water and electricity, both. So it's being fed from the ground. So they lift it up and just with a high pressure, they are washing the wind turbine. This is something which is happening. That's not the future. That's yesterday as well.
So maybe an open question. Does anyone in the audience drive a self-driving car?
No, I do.
You do.
Well, you probably do as well. You just don't know it yet.
Ah, like you, that you bought the Volvo?
What I learned, which I didn't know before, that roughly any car which has been produced since 2000 and let's say 4, it has enormous amount of sensors, computer networks. Any car, like any car, it's just normally not open to you, and it's been hidden. And car producers are really, slow guys, and they're also shy, probably. I don't know. But any car you can actually buy these days. It's full of sensors. It has its own computer network. Any car today.
Okay, I think thank you, Ingmars. It was amazing. It was a pleasure to hear it. Your applause, please.